The champagne bubbles tickled my throat as I watched my wife disappear around the corner with Mark Benton. It was 9:47 p.m. on a Friday night that should have been perfect. My promotion party. Chief Operating Officer of Hartwell Logistics. 20 years of grinding through spreadsheets and quarterly reports had finally paid off. I stood in the marble foyer of CEO Dalrymple's mansion, surrounded by colleagues offering congratulations I barely heard. My eyes were fixed on the hallway where Melissa had vanished with my ambitious colleague, her hand briefly touching his lower back as they walked away together. "Going to get more champagne from the wine cellar," she'd whispered to me, her breath warm against my ear. "Mark knows where it is." That was the first lie. I checked my watch again. 9:47 p.m. I made a mental note the way I always did with important data points. In my line of work, details matter. Inventory discrepancies, shipping delays, personnel issues, everything comes down to documentation and timing. The party swirled around me. Sasha, Melissa's best friend, was holding court near the grand piano, her voice carrying across the room as she regaled other wives with some story about her latest shopping expedition. Mr. Dalrymple was discussing quarterly projections with the board members near the fireplace. Everything looked normal, festive even, but I kept glancing at that hallway. "Hell of a promotion, Owen," said Jim from accounting, clapping me on the shoulder. "COO at 38, not bad for a numbers guy." "Thanks, Jim." I forced a smile, accepting another handshake. "Hard work pays off, right? Your wife must be thrilled. Where is Melissa anyway?" "Getting champagne," I replied automatically, the words tasting bitter. At 10:52 p.m., they returned. I was positioned perfectly to see them emerge from the side hallway that led to the wine cellar. Melissa appeared first, her cheeks flushed, one hand smoothing down her black cocktail dress. Her lipstick was smudged at the corner of her mouth. Mark followed 3 steps behind, his tie loosened and hanging at an odd angle. Most telling of all, Mark's left cufflink was missing, the expensive silver ones his ex-wife had given him, which he always wore to company events. I knew because he'd bragged about them being genuine Cartier. They carried no champagne. Melissa spotted me immediately and walked over with that bright smile she'd perfected during our 12 years of marriage, the one that never quite reached her eyes anymore. "Sorry, honey. The wine cellar is like a maze down there. Mark had to help me find the good stuff." She held up an empty champagne flute. "But they were all empty bottles. Can you believe it?" Another lie. I'd seen the catering staff restocking champagne all evening. "No problem," I said, kissing her cheek. Her perfume smelled different, mixed with something else, something masculine and familiar. Mark's cologne. The same Armani code he'd worn to every office function for the past 3 years. Mark approached us with his usual cocky grin, the one that had charmed clients and colleagues throughout his tenure as sales director. "Great party, Owen. You deserve this promotion. Nobody works harder than you." He extended his hand for a congratulatory shake. I noticed a small scratch on his knuckle that hadn't been there earlier. "Thanks, Mark. Means a lot coming from you." I shook his hand firmly, holding eye contact just a beat too long. "I'm looking forward to working more closely with the sales team in my new role." Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty, maybe. Or guilt. "Absolutely. We should grab lunch next week and discuss some ideas I have for expanding our West Coast operations." "Definitely," I agreed. "Though I should mention, there might be some organizational changes coming up. New position, new perspective on resource allocation." Melissa's hand tightened on my arm. "Owen, you're not going to talk shop all night, are you? It's your party." "You're right," I smiled at both of them. "Tonight's for celebrating." But as they walked away together, again, I was already thinking about Monday morning, about the personnel files in my new executive access folder, about Mark's employment contract and the transfer clauses buried in the fine print. I pulled out my phone and discreetly snapped a photo as they entered the main reception room together, Melissa's hand once again finding the small of Mark's back. The rest of the party passed in a blur of congratulations and small talk. I played the part of the grateful, humble executive while my mind catalogued every interaction between my wife and Mark. The way they avoided looking directly at each other. How Melissa kept touching her neck, a nervous habit she'd had since college. Mark's frequent trips to the bathroom, probably to fix his appearance. At midnight, we said our goodbyes. In the car ride home, Melissa chattered about the party, the food, the decorations. How proud she was of me. How this promotion would change everything for us. She was right about that last part, just not in the way she imagined. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent the weekend in my home office, ostensibly reviewing files for my new position, but actually thinking about Friday night, about timing and evidence and what exactly I'd witnessed. Melissa had been unusually affectionate all weekend, making my favorite breakfast Saturday morning, suggesting we go out for dinner Sunday night. Guilt behavior, I recognized now. The same pattern from 2 years ago when she'd accidentally charged $500 at Victoria's Secret and tried to hide it from me. I arrived at the office early, before 7 a.m. The executive floor was quiet, just the hum of computers and the distant sound of the cleaning crew finishing up. My new corner office still smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. The nameplate on my door read, Owen Harper, Chief Operating Officer, in brass letters that caught the morning light. The first thing I did was access the personnel database. My new security clearance gave me access to employment contracts, performance reviews, and organizational charts. I pulled up Mark Benton's file and studied it carefully. Mark had been with the company for 5 years. Good performance ratings, strong sales numbers, but 3 HR complaints for inappropriate workplace behavior that had been resolved with verbal warnings. Interesting. His current contract included a standard clause about accepting reassignment to any company location as needed for business purposes. Alaska. We had a small satellite office in Anchorage that handled logistics for our oil industry clients. Technically, it needed a senior sales director. The previous guy had quit 6 months ago, and we'd been managing it remotely from Seattle. I made a note in Mark's file about reviewing his suitability for the Alaska position. Next, I checked our IT policies. All company phones and computers were subject to monitoring. But more interesting was the shared cloud storage system that many employees used for family photos and personal files. Melissa had set up our account 3 years ago, linking both our phones for convenience. I logged into the shared drive and found exactly what I was looking for. Text messages, dozens of them, automatically backed up from Melissa's phone. The earliest ones dated back 6 weeks. Mark. Can't stop thinking about lunch today. Melissa. Me neither. Owen's working late again tomorrow. Mark. My place or yours? Melissa. Yours. Less risky. My coffee grew cold as I scrolled through weeks of messages. Detailed plans for meetings. Complaints about me. My long hours. My boring conversation. How I'd let myself go since turning 35. Intimate details about their physical relationship that made my stomach turn. The most recent exchange was from Friday night, sent during the party. Mark. You look incredible tonight. Melissa. Owen's so distracted by his promotion, he won't even notice if we disappear. Mark. Wine cellar in 10 minutes. Melissa. Perfect. I'll tell him we're getting champagne. I printed everything. 63 pages of evidence, time-stamped and documented. Then I called Carter Williams. Carter and I had been roommates in college, before he'd joined the police force and I'd gone into business. He'd left the cops 5 years ago to start his own private investigation firm, specializing in corporate security and domestic cases. We'd stayed in touch, meeting for drinks every few months to complain about our jobs and our lives. Owen? Christ, it's early. What's wrong? I need a favor, Carter. Professional consultation. Divorce case? Maybe. Can you meet me for lunch today? Sure. The Rusty Nail at noon? The Rusty Nail was our usual spot, a dive bar near downtown that served decent burgers and minded its own business. Carter was already there when I arrived, looking rumpled in his standard uniform of khakis and a polo shirt. His hair was graying at the temples, and he'd put on weight since his divorce 2 years ago. "You look like hell," he said by way of greeting. "Thanks. You're a real confidence booster." I slid into the booth across from him and ordered a beer, even though it was barely noon. "So what's this about? Melissa stepping out?" I handed him the printed messages. "What do you think?" Carter read through them with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen it all before. His expression didn't change, but he let out a low whistle when he finished. "Well, that's pretty definitive. How long has this been going on?" 6 weeks that I can prove. Maybe longer. "You want me to dig deeper? Financial records, hotel receipts, that kind of thing?" "Can you do it quietly?" "Owen, discreet is my middle name. Well, actually it's Eugene, but you get the idea." I laughed despite myself. "Yeah, do it. Full workup on both of them." "This Mark guy, he work with you? Sales director, thinks he's God's gift to the corporate world." "They always do. Give me a week." Carter was as good as his word. The following Monday, he called me into his office with a manila folder thick with photographs and documents. "Your wife and lover boy have been busy," he said, spreading photos across his desk. "Oakview Hotel, every Tuesday and Thursday for the past month. Always the same room, always paid for with his credit card." The photos showed Melissa and Mark entering the hotel together, leaving separately. Timestamps confirmed they were there during her supposed yoga classes and his client meetings. "There's more," Carter continued. "He's been buying her gifts, jewelry, lingerie, expensive dinners, all charged to a credit card his ex-wife doesn't know about." "Ex-wife?" "Yeah, they're divorced, but she still has access to his main accounts as part of their settlement. He's been hiding this relationship from her too, probably worried about alimony implications." I studied the photos, feeling strangely detached, like I was reviewing evidence for someone else's case. "What about Friday night? The promotion party?" Carter grinned and pulled out another set of photos. "Hotel security cameras. They went straight from your party to the Oakview, checked in at 11:30 p.m., checked out at 2 a.m. While I was home, lying in bed next to empty space, thinking Melissa was in the guest room with a headache. "How much do I owe you?" "First one's on the house. Call it a friendship discount." That evening, I sat in my home office reviewing everything Carter had given me. Melissa was upstairs getting ready for another yoga class. I could hear her moving around, probably selecting lingerie Mark had bought for her. My computer chimed with an email notification. New message from HR about organizational restructuring priorities for the coming quarter. Perfect timing. I opened Mark's personnel file again and began typing my recommendation for his immediate transfer to the Alaska office. The business justification was solid. We needed experienced leadership for our northern operations, and Mark's sales background made him the logical choice. I scheduled the transfer to take effect immediately, with relocation expenses covered by the company. Standard practice for executive reassignments. The paperwork would be processed Tuesday morning. Mark would receive his transfer orders by Wednesday afternoon. I printed the authorization forms and signed them with my new executive signature. Then I locked everything in my desk drawer and went upstairs to kiss my wife goodbye before her yoga class. "Have fun," I told her, watching her cheeks flush with guilt. "I will," she lied, grabbing her gym bag that probably contained the lingerie Mark had bought her. After she left, I poured myself a scotch and sat in my living room, looking at the framed photos on the mantel. Our wedding picture, vacations we'd taken. Melissa's smile looked the same in every photo, bright and perfect and completely fake. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Congrats on the promotion. Looking forward to working with you. Mark." I deleted it without responding. By Thursday, Mark Benton would be on a plane to Alaska, and Melissa would be wondering why her lover had suddenly stopped answering her calls. Wednesday afternoon arrived with the efficiency of corporate bureaucracy. At exactly 3:17 p.m., I watched through my office window as Mark Benton stormed out of the HR department, clutching a manila envelope in his white-knuckled fist. The transfer orders had been delivered. I gave him 10 minutes to process the information before my phone rang. "Owen, we need to talk. Now." Mark's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "Of course, my office or yours?" "Parking garage, level B2, 5 minutes." He hung up before I could respond. Perfect. A private confrontation away from security cameras and curious colleagues. I took my time walking to the elevator, stopping to chat with Janet from accounting about quarterly budget projections. Let him wait. Let him stew in his anger and desperation. The parking garage was dimly lit and nearly empty at this hour. Mark was pacing beside his silver BMW, still clutching the transfer papers. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie loosened. He looked like a man whose carefully constructed world was collapsing. "You bastard," he said as I approached. "You orchestrated this whole thing." "I'm not sure what you mean, Mark. The Alaska position is a promotion. Senior Sales Director for Northern Operations. It's a significant opportunity." "Cut the corporate bullshit, Owen. We both know this is about Friday night." I tilted my head, feigning confusion. "Friday night? You mean my promotion party? What about it?" Mark stepped closer, invading my personal space. He was taller than me by 3 inches and spent his mornings at the gym, while I preferred coffee and spreadsheets. But I wasn't intimidated. I had something more powerful than muscles. I had leverage. "You know exactly what this is about. You saw Melissa and me together. I saw you helping my wife find champagne in the wine cellar. Very thoughtful of you. Don't play dumb. You've been planning this revenge since Friday night." I let my expression harden. "Revenge? Mark, you're being paranoid. This is a business decision based on operational needs. Alaska requires experienced leadership, and your sales background makes you the logical choice. I'm not going to Alaska. Then you're resigning. Those are your options per your employment contract. Section 12, subsection C, mandatory acceptance of reassignment or voluntary termination." Mark's face flushed red. "You can't do this." "Actually, I can. It's one of the perks of being COO." I smiled coldly. "I have broad authority over personnel decisions and organizational restructuring." He grabbed my shirt front with both hands, pushing me back against a concrete pillar. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Sitting in your office, moving people around like chess pieces? Let go of me, Mark. Or what? You'll have me fired? You're already trying to destroy my career." I remained calm, even as his grip tightened on my shirt. "I'm offering you a promotion to a senior position with a 20% salary increase. Most people would consider that a career advancement. In Alaska, it's corporate exile, and we both know it. It's a beautiful state. Great fishing, I hear." Mark's grip loosened slightly. He was realizing that losing his temper wouldn't solve his problem. "What do you want, Owen? Money? I'll pay you whatever." "I don't want your money." "Then what?" I stepped closer, lowering my voice to barely above a whisper. "I want you gone. Permanently. I want you on a plane to Anchorage by Friday afternoon, and I want you to stay there. And if I refuse? Then I'll be forced to investigate some concerning irregularities in your expense reports. Funny thing about hotel charges, they leave quite a paper trail." Mark's face went pale. "You wouldn't. Try me." I straightened my shirt where he'd wrinkled it. "Oh, and Mark? Stop texting my wife. I have access to our shared cloud storage. Every message, every photo, every pathetic love note, all of it." He released me completely, stepping back as if I'd slapped him. "You've been spying on us." "I've been protecting company assets. Melissa's phone is on our corporate family plan. IT security protocols require monitoring of all company-connected devices. It was a complete lie, but Mark didn't know that. This is harassment. I could sue you. With what evidence? I'm offering you a promotion based on legitimate business needs. Your personal relationship with my wife is irrelevant to corporate decisions. Mark looked around the parking garage desperately, as if searching for an escape route. She loves me, Owen. Melissa is going to leave you anyway. Maybe. But she'll be doing it as a single woman, because you'll be in Alaska building our northern operations. I won't go. Then clean out your desk. Security will escort you from the building within the hour. I started walking toward the elevator, leaving him standing alone beside his BMW. He called after me. This isn't over, Owen. I turned back with a smile. Actually, Mark, it is. Your flight to Anchorage leaves Friday at 2:15 p.m., gate B7. Don't miss it. The elevator doors closed on his stunned expression. Thursday morning brought the expected fallout. Melissa was unusually quiet at breakfast, picking at her toast and checking her phone constantly. Mark wasn't responding to her texts, probably on the advice of his lawyer, if he'd been smart enough to call one. At the office, I fielded 3 calls from HR asking for clarification on the Alaska transfer. I provided detailed business justifications for each question, citing market expansion opportunities and the need for experienced leadership in our northern operations. Everything was documented and legally sound. Mark spent the day cleaning out his office. I watched from my window as he carried boxes to his car, his movements sharp with suppressed anger. Several colleagues stopped to wish him well on his promotion, unaware of the real circumstances. At 4 p.m., he appeared in my doorway one final time. I want you to know that this won't work, he said quietly. Melissa will follow me to Alaska if I ask her to. I looked up from my computer screen. Will she? Interesting theory. Let's test it. I picked up my phone and dialed Melissa's number, putting it on speaker. Hi, honey, she answered on the second ring. Hi, sweetheart. I have some news. Mark Benton is being transferred to our Alaska office, permanent relocation. Isn't that exciting for him? Silence stretched across the line. I could practically hear her processing the implications. Alaska? She finally managed. Anchorage. Beautiful country up there. Mark's leaving Friday afternoon. That's sudden. Corporate decisions often are. Anyway, I thought you'd want to know since you've worked with him on some of the charity events. Right. Yes, thanks for telling me. See you tonight. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and looked at Mark, who was staring at the phone with a stricken expression. She didn't sound very enthusiastic about following you to Alaska, I observed. Mark left without another word. Friday afternoon, I made a point of being in the lobby when Mark's taxi arrived. He walked past me without acknowledgement, pulling a single suitcase and carrying a briefcase. His face was set in grim resignation. Safe travels, I called after him. He didn't turn around. That evening, Melissa was waiting for me when I got home. She'd made dinner, my favorite pot roast, and opened a bottle of wine. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she was trying to maintain her usual cheerful facade. How was your day? She asked as we sat down to eat. Productive. We finalized the Alaska transition. Mark should be settling into his new office by Monday. That's nice. She took a large gulp of wine. It must be hard for him, leaving everything behind. Change is always difficult, but sometimes it's necessary. Melissa nodded, pushing food around her plate without eating. Owen, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever think about us? About our marriage? I set down my fork and looked at her directly. What do you mean? We've been together for 12 years. Sometimes I wonder if we're just going through the motions. Are we? She met my eyes for the first time all evening. I don't know. Are we? I reached across the table and took her hand. Her wedding ring felt loose on her finger. She'd lost weight recently, probably from the stress of maintaining her double life. I think we're exactly where we're supposed to be, I said. She squeezed my hand and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Later that night, I sat in my home office reviewing emails from the Alaska office. Mark had arrived safely and was scheduled to meet with the local team Monday morning. His first assignment would be a 3-week tour of remote drilling sites, establishing relationships with clients across the Northern Territory. No cell phone coverage, no internet access, no contact with the outside world. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa's number. "Are you awake?" But Melissa was upstairs, asleep in our bed. I'd heard her crying softly for 20 minutes before exhaustion finally claimed her. The text was meant for Mark, sent out of habit before she remembered he was gone. I deleted it and turned off my phone. 3 weeks passed in relative quiet. Melissa went through the motions of our normal routine, but I could see the cracks forming. She checked her phone obsessively, waiting for messages that would never come. She started drinking wine with lunch. Her yoga classes became actual yoga classes since she had nowhere else to go. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in early December. I was working late in my office when Sasha called. Melissa's best friend had always rubbed me the wrong way. Too much money, too much time, and too much interest in other people's business. But tonight, she sounded genuinely concerned. "Owen, I'm worried about Melissa. She's been acting strange lately." "Strange how?" "Withdrawn, depressed. She canceled our lunch plans 3 times this month, and yesterday she started crying in the middle of Starbucks for no reason." I made appropriate, concerned husband noises. "I've noticed she's been under stress. Maybe she should talk to someone." "Has something happened? Problems at work?" "Not that I know of." "Why?" Sasha hesitated. "She keeps asking about Mark Benton, whether I've heard from him, if anyone knows how he's doing in Alaska. It seems like an odd fixation. They work together on some charity projects. Maybe she's worried about how he's adjusting." "Maybe." But Sasha didn't sound convinced. "Owen, can I ask you something? As a friend?" "Sure." "Do you think Melissa might have been involved with Mark before he left?" I let silence stretch across the line, as if I was processing a shocking possibility. "What makes you ask that?" "Little things. The way she looked at him at your promotion party. How upset she got when she heard about his transfer. And now this obsession with contacting him." "I hope not," I said quietly. "That would be devastating. I'm probably wrong. Melissa loves you. Everyone knows that. I appreciate you calling, Sasha. I'll talk to her." But I didn't talk to Melissa. Instead, I waited. The explosion came the following weekend. I was in my home office Saturday morning when I heard Melissa's voice from the kitchen, sharp with frustration. "What do you mean there's no forwarding information? He works for my husband's company." She was on the phone with someone, probably trying to track down Mark's contact information in Alaska. I'd made sure that particular information was classified as confidential corporate data, accessible only to senior executives. "No, I don't want to leave a message with HR. This is personal." I crept closer to the kitchen, staying out of sight. "Fine. Thank you for nothing." She hung up with enough force to rattle the phone in its cradle. "Problems?" I asked, appearing in the doorway. Melissa spun around, her face flushed with guilt and anger. "I was trying to reach Mark about the charity auction committee. We have unfinished business." Another lie. The charity auction had been completed in October. "I could get you his contact information," I offered. "Though I should warn you, he's been assigned to some pretty remote locations. Communication is sporadic." "Could you? That would be great." "Of course. Anything for you." That afternoon, I gave Melissa a satellite phone number that would connect her to the main office in Anchorage. What I didn't tell her was that all calls to that number were routed through a central switchboard and recorded for quality assurance purposes. She called that evening, while I was upstairs, supposedly taking a shower. I listened from the top of the stairs as she tried to reach Mark. "Hello, I'm trying to reach Mark Benton. He's the new sales director." A pause. "What do you mean he's in the field? When will he be back?" Another pause. 3 weeks? But this is urgent." Her voice was rising, taking on a desperate edge. No, I can't leave a message. This is personal, very personal. I heard her hang up and start crying. Deep, wrenching sobs that echoed through our house. I came downstairs in my bathrobe, playing the concerned husband. Honey, what's wrong? She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I can't reach Mark, she whispered. Is this about the charity work? She stared at me for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to maintain the lie. Finally, her shoulders sagged in defeat. No, it's not about charity work. What's it about? Owen, I need to tell you something about Mark and me. I sat down beside her on the couch, taking her hand. What about Mark? We had a relationship before he left for Alaska. I let my face register shock, hurt, betrayal. All the emotions a faithful husband should feel upon learning of his wife's affair. What kind of relationship? We were having an affair. For about 2 months. 2 months? I made my voice crack slightly. While you were taking yoga classes? She nodded miserably. I'm so sorry, Owen. I never meant for it to happen, it just did. Do you love him? The question hung in the air between us. Melissa looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, probably trying to calculate which answer would hurt me least. I thought I did, but now I don't know. He won't return my calls. It's like he just disappeared. Maybe that's for the best. Is it? She grabbed my hands desperately. Owen, can you ever forgive me? I looked at my wife, really looked at her. 12 years of marriage, and I was seeing her clearly for the first time. The perfectly styled hair that required 2 hours at the salon every week. The designer clothes that cost more than most people's car payments. The manicured nails that had never done a day of real work. She was beautiful, I'd give her that. But beauty without substance is just decoration. I don't know, I said honestly. This is a lot to process. I understand. I'll do anything to make this right. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. What I want is honesty. Complete honesty. How long has this been going on, really? Melissa took a shaky breath. Since September, we met for coffee after the quarterly sales meeting and it just escalated. Where did you meet? Usually at his apartment, sometimes hotels. The Oakview? Her eyes widened in surprise. How did you know that? Lucky guess. It's where the company puts up visiting clients. She nodded. Room 247. He had some kind of arrangement with the management. I filed that information away for future reference. Did you sleep with him the night of my promotion party? Melissa's silence was answer enough. While I was celebrating the biggest achievement of my career, you were in a hotel room with Mark Benton. Owen, please. Get out! What? I stood up, suddenly exhausted by the whole charade. Get out of my house, tonight. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Hotel, Sasha's place, your mother's house, anywhere but here. Melissa stared at me as if I'd slapped her. You're throwing me out? You threw yourself out the moment you decided to cheat on me. I'm just making it official. She tried to argue, to negotiate, to bargain her way back into my good graces, but I was done listening. I went upstairs and locked myself in the bedroom while she packed a suitcase.